What is up guys, back again with yet another one, and we're going to be talking about the new F-Type. It's had a bit of a facelift. There's been some changes made to the engine as well. Again, you can probably tell the front end of the vehicles are going to be different, but I will touch on that in a little bit. This car has gone through a 10-year run, and essentially it's going to be calling it quits in 2024. So I'm going to touch on the current model of the F-Type, and I'm going to compare it to the previous, I guess, pre-facelift model of the F-Type. But first, if you guys are new here, like the video, subscribe, leave a comment on the F-Type. Do you own one? Are you curious about getting one? Do you think it's going to be a collector's item? I could potentially see it being a bit of a, I guess, a future classic, if you will. Partially because of the availability, it's going to go way down because it's out of production. Also because the cars itself, I mean, the F-Types are pretty good, like fairly reliable cars, but also they give you that bit of oomph and that sportiness to it as well. Again, I'll touch on the specs and all that good stuff. So without further ado, let's start up the video. Now we're going to start off with the 2020, so that's a pre-facelift F-Type. So the P300, which is their lowest end edition, the base model essentially, you're looking at a 2-liter inline 4-cylinder car. So not great. I mean, you look at the car from the outside and it's like, oh, it looks really sporty, but when you drive it, it doesn't have that extra oomph because it really only gives you about 300 horsepower, which in the grand scheme isn't bad by any means, but for a sporty car, you would expect a little bit more. However, it is still rear-wheel drive. As far as the interior, you can see it right here. They've done a pretty good job at, even though we're looking at a 2020 car, it still has a modern look to it. So now if I compare, again, it's a bit of a, it's not quite a fair comparison per se, but comparing the new Maserati to the old Maserati, I made a whole video about that, so I'm not going to touch too much on it. But there's a very distinct difference on how they designed the interior of the old Maserati versus the newer ones. However, for the Jaguar, they've been fairly consistent at making the interior as modern as possible. Price-wise, looking at a $60,000 plus vehicle, and you can actually check out what this 2020 F-Type sounds like right here. And now for the downsides, we're talking about a car which, again, it's sporty, it's supposed to be more of a driver's car, so trunk space is very limited. The overall car itself, the interior space is very limited. So at most, you're probably going to be driving it with one passenger in the front seat alongside you. It's not really that powerful. You probably have to go up a little bit in the tiers from the base model in order to get somewhat of a better, more fun car to drive. And now comparing that to the 2023, which is the most recent model, again, the previous one was the P300, this new one is the P450, so you can already tell 300, 450. And of course the specs also mirror that increase in numbers because comparatively, we're looking at a 5-liter V8 engine, which again, that's a big jump because we're talking about from 4 cylinders to 8 cylinders and from a 2-liter to a 5-liter. So it's going to be a much bigger engine. It will guzzle a lot more gas, but I can guarantee that V8 sound is going to be chef's kiss. Now for the interior, as I mentioned a little bit earlier in the video, not too much has been done to change it from how it used to be to how it is now. However, again, you can tell the facelift on the front end of the vehicle, they've sort of changed from vertical lights to horizontal lights. But again, it does give it a bit more aggression. It gives it more of a fiercer look, if you will, which I personally prefer. I don't really hate the old look of the F-Type, but I just slightly do prefer the new look. And with the engine being better, naturally, the price is also going to be higher. In this case, we're looking at a $70,000+ vehicle. So that's about well, another $10,000 thrown on top of the predecessor. However, as far as space, still the same thing. You're really not expecting much when it comes to the trunk space, the interior space. Again, probably for you and a passenger beside you, but outside of that, you're really not expecting to have like, it's not a car where you're gonna drive your kids to school in. Essentially, that's what I'm trying to say. So of course, as I mentioned, this car is gonna be going away in 2024. It's had a pretty long 10-year run. I've been eyeing this car because it's a car that I'm kind of curious about. Maybe I might get it, maybe not. The price is a bit deterring. And again, as I mentioned earlier, just like with the 2020 version, again, if I looked at the competitors, like a Porsche, for example, if I was gonna pay $70,000, I could probably get a used Porsche for just about the same price, but the handling's gonna be better. It's gonna be better on gas, if that's really what I care about. I don't know why I would buy a sports car caring about gas, but with the economy, it's probably something that I would need to be looking into. However, overall, you can see the two cars compared with each other. Which one do you prefer as far as the aesthetics, as far as the exterior of the car looks? Which you do, of course, I would naturally assume that you'd prefer the V8 over the 4-cylinder engine. But could this car be a future classic? Do you think this car is going to be a collector's item over the next few years, maybe decades? Let me know in the comments below. And that's that for this video, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.